10 years ago, Kiritsugu Emiya, the wizard, rescued the sole survivor of a devastating catastrophe. Amid tears of joy, he proclaimed that by saving the young boy, he was also saving himself. 5 years after the death of his adoptive father, Shirō finds himself entangled in a fierce contest among 7 mages known as Masters, who control legendary spirits called servants. They seek the coveted wish of the Holy Grail. In this battle, without a second thought, Shirō Emiya vowed to become a hero of justice dedicated to the salvation of others. In the present, he awakens in a warehouse after using magic and is roused by Sakura Matu. Together, they go about their morning routines and have breakfast with Teiba Fujimura. News of a gas leak concerns the young man, and he cautions Sakura to be careful. At school, she invites him to practice at the dojo, but he declines due to his responsibilities in the student council. While fixing a heater with Issei Ryudo, he uses his magic to solve the issue. He encounters Rin Tosaka, and later at school, Shinji Matu mocks him, but Shirō ignores him. As they go about their tasks, they converse about their private lives and Shirō's discreet use of magic. Back home, Shirō encounters Eliasville von Einsburn, who warns him about summoning his servant. Confused, Shirō doesn't fully understand, and when he looks back, the girl disappears. At home, Fuji-ni warns about the danger in the city and comments on Shirō's desire to be a hero. After dinner, alone, Shirō attempts a spell unsuccessfully. The next day, he notices a bruise on Sakura's hand and questions Shinji. Although Sakura denies his involvement, Shirō remains skeptical. On the way to school, he witnesses a police scene. During lunch, he consults Ayako Mitsuzuri about Sakura, who suggests issues with Shinji due to Rin's rejection the day before. After school at the dojo, Shirō encounters Kade Makidera, Yukika Sagusa, and Kane Himuro, who inform him about the murder of a family at a nearby intersection. On the bus ride back home, he recalls his past in the hospital and the life lesson imparted by Kiritsugu Emiya, his savior, about being a hero. At home, Fujini informs him about Sakura's early absence. The scene shifts to Sakura encountering a mysterious person named Gilgamesh. The next day, Sakura informs Shirō that she won't be able to prepare dinner for a few days, and he notices a strange mark on her hand. At school, Shirō senses a magical field and, not understanding it, attributes it to fatigue. At the end of the day, he talks to Shinji about the wound on Sakura's hand. Although Shinji denies knowing anything, Shirō apologizes and agrees to clean the dojo in place of Shinji. After cleaning, the school is in darkness, and Shirō witnesses a confrontation between Lancer and Archer on the baseball field. Lancer brutally attacks him, but Rin appears and saves Shirō with her red pendant. Recovering at home, Shirō reflects on the incident and is attacked again by Lancer. Dodging the attacks, he uses magic to strengthen a signboard as a weapon. On the verge of defeat, appears to protect him. Confused, Shirō questions Saber about the Holy Grail War and notices the command seals on his hand without understanding their significance. Amid the confusion, Shirō uses one of the seals to command Saber to stop, infuriating her. Rin approaches with Archer, adding more uncertainty to the bewildering situation. Shirō shares with Rin about Lancer's attack on his house, leading to a shocking revelation. He is now a master in the Holy Grail War, with Saber as his servant. While enjoying tea in the dining room, Rin explains the importance of command spells and reveals that Shirō has already used one of the 3 available. To delve further into the situation, Shirō is taken to the church in New City to meet with Kurai Kotomi, who confirms the Holy Grail selection and reveals the unlimited power the winner will attain. Shirō considers freeing himself from his role as a master using his commands, but Kurai challenges him, implying that surrendering would be cowardly. Although Shirō confirms that even the wicked can prevail, Kurai urges him to participate and win to avoid dark consequences. Kurai reveals that the disaster of 10 years ago was caused by an unworthy winner of the previous war. Shirō, surprised, inquires about whether any master has achieved their wish in previous wars. Kurai reveals that a man touched the Grail, but the ritual was not completed, and the wish was not granted. Only one master can survive for the Grail to choose a worthy winner. Inspired by the conversation, Shirō decides to participate as a master. Understanding Shirō's beliefs, Kurai offers parting words, urging him to rejoice in the opportunity to become a hero of justice. He emphasizes the need for a villain to exist for a hero to emerge, referring to the other masters Shirō will face and must defeat. Outside the church, Shirō, after confirming with Saber that she accepts him as her master, shakes hands with her, thus renewing their commitment. Saber asserts that a formal agreement is not necessary, as he has been her master from the beginning. As they walk away, Rin surprises Shirō by suggesting that they should part ways, officially considering themselves enemies now that he is part of the war. Despite Rin's declaration, Shirō insists that he has no intentions of facing her. At this moment, Archer appears, encouraging Rin to seize the opportunity to defeat Shirō. However, Rin, feeling indebted to Shirō for his previous intervention, refuses to attack him. Archer, though annoyed, accepts and disappears. Shirō playfully comments that Rin is the kind of person he likes. When Shirō bids farewell to Rin, Eliasville von Einsborn appears, revealing her connection to Berserker, her servant. Rin understands the situation, and it becomes clear that they will face new challenges in this dangerous Holy Grail war. In the dark night, Rin and Archer come across Eliasville von Einsborn near a cemetery, marking their first formal encounter. Shirō notices the familiarity between Rin, Saber, and the mysterious Eliasville. After scanning Berserker, Rin discovers that his power surpasses even that of Saber, leading her to coordinate a plan with Archer and convincing her to deal with Berserker from a distance while Rin, Saber, and Shirō attempt to contain him. Rin, urging Shirō to decide whether to confront or flee, chooses to stay as Eliasville summons Berserker. The battle unfolds, but red bursts from the sky only momentarily halt Berserker. The swift onslaught of the warrior leaves Shirō vulnerable, but Saber intervenes, triggering an evenly matched sword duel. Rin calls upon Archer for fire support, but his arrows barely affect Berserker. Desperate, Rin creates a magical dome to immobilize Berserker, allowing Archer to unleash a barrage of arrows, resulting in an explosion with no effect. Eliasville orders Berserker to focus on Saber, relegating Rin and Shirō as insignificant. While Saber takes the fight to the cemetery, Rin urges Shirō to retreat, but he decides to face the challenge once again. Kneeling and feeling powerless, Shirō remembers his promise to fight alongside Saber. Regaining his courage, he runs back into the battle. In the church, Kare and Gilgamesh engage in a dialogue about the war. Kare shares his enthusiasm, linking it to the past of Kiritsugu Emiya, Shirō's adoptive father. Despite Gilgamesh's warnings about potential chaos, Kare dismisses them as sins forgivable by God. Shirō approaches the intense battle as Berserker and Saber continue their confrontation, their swords clashing in a frenzied duel. Meanwhile, Rin attempts to attack Eliasville with magic, but her efforts are thwarted by two autonomous familiar birds that chase her with lasers. Eliasville unleashes more familiars, forcing Rin to fight to defend herself. Despite blocking and destroying some of them, one transforms into a sword that nearly reaches Rin. Archer intervenes with his arrows, allowing Rin to escape. In a safe location, Rin recovers and searches for Saber, but Archer cannot trace Eliasville. Rin realizes that victory depends on Saber and orders Archer to support her from a distance. She finds Shirō on the battlefield and scolds him for being there, though she is genuinely concerned about his safety. Despite her orders to retreat, Shirō refuses, asserting his commitment to Saber. Rin, while questioning his ability, cannot ignore his determination. The discussion is interrupted by the showdown between Berserker and Saber in the cemetery. Saber lures Berserker there to take advantage of the cover. Eventually, Saber unleashes her powerful noble phantasm, seemingly defeating Berserker. However, his regeneration surprises everyone, revealing his resurrection ability. As Shirō approaches, he senses that Archer is about to use his own noble phantasm to finish off Berserker. Shirō and Saber quickly step aside, allowing Archer to unleash an arrow shaped like a sword, creating a nuclear explosion. But even that is not enough to defeat Berserker, who survives. Eliasville decides to withdraw, intrigued by Archer. After her departure, Shirō, exhausted, unexpectedly begins to cough up blood. Eliasville von Einsborn enjoys a relaxing bath in her mansion, attended to by two older women. This person argues that both enemies now know Berserker's noble phantasm, suggesting they should have been eliminated. However, Eliasville trusts in Berserker's invincibility and sees no issue. Despite the concerns, Eliasville maliciously smiles at the thought of making Shirō Emiya suffer as revenge against Kiritsugu Emiya. The scene shifts to Shirō, who has a surreal dream in a field filled with swords. Upon waking up, he encounters Rin, who scolds him for expressing gratitude to an enemy. Rin explains that she simply didn't intend to kill him at that moment. As she bids farewell, Rin warns Shirō that the next time they meet, they will be enemies. Curious and grateful, Shirō begins searching for Saber. He finds Saber resting in her dojo, and they discuss the previous fight. Saber praises Shirō's self-healing magic and urges him to be more careful. Shirō reaffirms his commitment to fight alongside Saber. During a calm conversation over tea, Saber reveals crucial information to Shirō about the 7 classes of servants and the importance of winning the Holy Grail. However, she insists on keeping her identity secret to protect herself from potential enemies. Meanwhile, Rin and Archer investigate a gas leak in a building. They detect Mana and conclude that a master is causing harm to innocent bystanders. Rin's outrage at this action reflects her determination to stop those who use magical power irresponsibly. Back at Shirō's house, he struggles to properly nourish Saber with his limited mana. Fujimura-sensei interrupts, instructing him to take lunch to the school's archery dojo. Accompanied by Saber, Shirō heads there and notices traces of mana, indicating a potential problem. At the school, Saber briefly gets lost, surprising the students, and Shirō faces Ayako Mitsuzuri's curious questions about the mysterious girl. While exploring the school, Saber encounters Kuzuki-sensei, a meeting that leaves Shirō nervous. Kuzuki warns about the attention Saber could attract. During their surveillance, Saber impresses Shirō with her ability to perceive danger. The interaction with Ayako reveals Shiro's perception as someone serious and reserved, recalling his traumatizing past. Upon returning home with Fujimura-sensei and Sakura, Shirō reveals that Saber will be living with them temporarily. Despite the surprise, Fujini gives her blessing. During dinner, an uncomfortable silence settles in. Later, Fujini decides to stay at Shiro's house, inviting Sakura to do the same. Though surprised, Shirō accepts the situation. Elsewhere, Rin investigates a building infested with magical creatures. She faces skeletons and a lizard skeleton, discovering a room where a strange incense renders innocent people unconscious. Archer points out that it's the work of a witch, and Rin concludes that Castor is behind it. Later, on the rooftop of a building, Rin and Archer discuss the threat posed by Castor and her knowledge of the abilities of servants. They decide to go after Castor, with Archer questioning Rin's determination and her eventual willingness to kill Shirō, if necessary. In a flashback, Kiritsugu tells Shirō that he once wished to become a hero of justice. The boy promised Kiritsugu to fulfill that dream on his behalf, which fills Kiritsugu with pride. In the present, Shirō goes to school alone, despite Saber's insistence on accompanying him. At school, Issei informs Shirō that Ayako had disappeared the previous day and was last seen arguing with Shinji, who is currently absent and unreachable. Following this, Emiya asks Sakura if she noticed anything strange about her brother's behavior the day before, and she confesses that she hasn't seen him lately. Due to the events, the school administration decides to suspend all extracurricular club activities and asks the students to return home. Shirō comes face to face with Rin, who appears to be upset with him, reproaching him for not going to school with his guardian. She shows him the crystallized magic that seems to be passed down in her family and threatens to defeat him using gander shots. Shirō warns her not to cause a scene since they are at school, and there could be people watching them. Without giving him any time to react, Rin attacks Shirō despite his protests. After a brief chase, Rin finally corners Shirō and attempts to threaten him into handing over the remaining command seals. The attacks become increasingly violent, and Shirō decides to take refuge in a classroom to think about how to escape this situation. Rin performs an incantation, uttering the words Das Schieben Vogulkafik, preventing him from escaping the location, and then mentions another with the words Fixierung Eilsalve to initiate a lethal attack. However, at the right moment, our protagonist utters Trace On and manages to emerge unharmed. Just as he believes she has run out of mana, a talisman lights up the classroom, forcing Shirō to come out and face the situation. Before Rin can carry out her threat, they both hear a scream. Shirō investigates and finds an unconscious student whose mana has been mostly drained. While Rin tries to assist the student, Shirō gets injured protecting her from an attack by the servant rider. He then pursues this servant into the nearby forest, where he is immobilized and almost killed, only to be saved by Rin, whose arrival forces Rider to flee. Rin tends to Shirō's wounds and decides to call off the fight, taking him to her home to assess the situation. Once there, they agree to a truce and decide to locate Rider and her master together. The following night, Rin is outraged to learn about Shirō's magical training, as Kiritsugu did not follow the wizarding tradition and prioritized himself as a father rather than a mage. Shirō Emiya, upon returning from Rin Tosaka's mansion, detects the invisible presence of Archer, who materializes his physical form. Faced with Shirō's discomfort at being followed, Archer suggests the need to escort him due to the recent attack. Although Shirō rejects an escort willing to kill him, Archer commits to obeying Rin's orders and not attacking during the escort. During the journey, Archer criticizes Shirō's lack of ruthlessness, praising Rin for her mindset suitable for war. Despite Rin's luck as Archer's master, he reveals his indifference towards the Holy Grail and shares his philosophy about heroic spirits as mere tools. Upon arriving home, Shirō encounters Sakura and Taiga, while Saber informs him about the temporary truce with Rin and Ayako's safety. In the dojo, Saber questions Shirō about his delay, and they both agree that he needs more training in hand-to-hand combat. At school, Shinji mocks Shirō for the incident with Ayako, leading to a confrontation with a veiled threat. After school in the library, Rin and Shirō search for the seals of the bounded field of the mysterious master. Using Trace On, Shirō points out the seals while Rin removes them, weakening the field but not destroying it. Rin believes that the master will soon reveal themselves due to their actions. Rin leaves Shirō to attend to personal matters and encounters Shinji as he leaves school alone. Shinji reveals himself to be the master of Rider and the one responsible for the magical field and seals. He admits that his servant attacked the student the previous day and proposes an alliance to Shirō, who refuses. Noticing Shirō's determination to win the war, Shinji suggests that Sakura shouldn't stay at his house any longer. Shirō promises that he will make sure Sakura leaves. That night, Shirō trains with Saber in his dojo, being repeatedly defeated. Later, he practices the trace on technique in his shed, where Saber joins him to learn about his reinforcement. However, the proximity makes Shirō uncomfortable and he distances himself. While attempting to strengthen a rock, Saber senses that her presence distracts him and apologizes. Falling asleep in the shed, Shirō is surprised by mana threads that transport him to the Ryudo Temple, where Medea, better known as Castor, materializes. She reveals her involvement in the coma cases and seeks Shirō's command seals to control Saber and defeat Berserker. At Shirō's house, Saber notices the threads and follows them to the temple. In the temple grounds, Saber confronts a repelling magical field and encounters the assassin's servant blocking her path, preparing for battle. Meanwhile, Archer appears to attack Castor and prevent her from obtaining Shirō's command seals. On the staircase leading to the Ryudo Temple, Assassin and Saber find themselves at a standstill. Assassin challenges Saber to a duel, stating that she can only proceed to the temple if she defeats him. Meanwhile, in the temple, Archer defends Shirō Emiya in his confrontation against Castor. Upset by Assassin's inability to hold off Archer, Castor reveals that the latter is occupied with Saber. Archer suggests that Castor and Assassin might be working together, but Castor denies it and mocks Assassin as her pawn. Castor admits to breaking the rules by summoning Assassin without a master and reveals her covert tactics. Archer reproaches Castor for not fighting directly and implies that her master must be weak. The verbal confrontation continues until Archer decides to engage Castor in hand-to-hand combat. After what appears to be a fatal blow, Castor's body turns out to be a decoy, revealing her true position. Castor unleashes an explosion against Archer, who blocks the attack with his dual blades, while Shirō manages to evade the blast with some minor cuts and bruises. Meanwhile, in the battle between Saber and Assassin, despite Saber's advantage in weight and speed, she cannot break through Assassin's defense. They exchange words praising each other's skills. At a critical moment, Assassin is about to deliver a fatal blow to Saber, grazing her neck with his sword. The situation becomes dire when Castor, realizing that Shirō is unprotected, fires an explosive shot. In the nick of time, Archer manages to grab Shirō and save him. As they flee, Castor attempts to shoot them again, but Archer kicks Shirō just before he gets caught in Castor's magic. Thinking she has sealed her victory, Castor begins to taunt Archer, but his dual blades fly down from above to attack by surprise. Although Castor manages to deflect the attack, Archer seizes the opportunity to break free from Castor's magic and activate his noble phantasm. After uttering the words, "I am the bone of my sword," he fires his arrow, dealing significant damage to Castor. Meanwhile, Assassin executes his swallow reversal on Saber, who barely manages to escape the attack alive. Assassin shares information about this secret technique with her. Castor, injured but still standing, questions Archer about why he doesn't eliminate her. Archer explains that he promised to defeat her with a single blow and that he doesn't engage in unnecessary fights. Castor suggests that Archer and Shirō are similar, as both avoid killing humans unnecessarily. Archer and Shirō argue about this point, both denying any resemblance despite Castor's interpretation. Castor proposes an alliance between the three, but Shirō rejects the idea due to his distrust of her, and Archer refuses, considering that Castor lacks the necessary power. Archer allows Castor to escape, revealing that Rin Tosaka never ordered him to kill her. After Castor's departure, Shirō questions Archer about his decision. Archer reveals his plan to allow Castor to become more powerful by sacrificing innocent lives, hoping that she can defeat Berserker. This perspective infuriates Shirō, who refuses to sacrifice lives for victory. Archer justifies his stance by arguing that it is necessary to lose some lives to prevent Castor from winning the Grail, as that would result in more deaths. When Shirō attempts to pursue Castor, Archer stops him by cutting his back. He tries to attack Shirō, but he manages to dodge the strike and is embraced by Saber. As they withdraw, Archer confronts Assassin, allowing Shirō and Saber to escape. 2249 back at Shirō's house, he decides to train to improve his combat skills. Shirō Emiya experiences a strange nightmare in which his arms are covered by a painful metallic armor. He wakes up in his bed with no trace of the armor. Later, he trains with Saber in the dojo using kendo swords, and upon finishing, he asks Saber if he's being kinder, to which she responds that she's simply improving. Shirō reveals that he has been imitating Archer's stance, apologizing to Saber for not imitating hers. although the tension between them is evident. Later at school, Shirō becomes the target of mockery from Shinji Matu, who seems to have malicious intentions. Rin Tosaka waits for Shirō after classes, takes him to the rooftop, and apologizes for Archer's attack, revealing that she used a command seal to prevent him from harming Shirō as long as their alliance persists. Although Shirō accepts the apologies, he also acknowledges his role in the events and the saving grace from Archer. Rin persuades Shirō to skip classes and continue their discussion. Back in the classroom, Shinji notices Shirō's absence and smiles, hinting at malicious plans. On the rooftop, Rin shares her magical specialty of transferring power either to herself or others. She reveals information about the Matu family and her recent discovery that Shinji is a master. Rin emphasizes that she won't attack Shinji just for being a master, and that her previous attack on Shirō was due to his lack of seriousness. Both agree to focus on finding the unknown fourth master. Rin reveals that Shinji proposed an alliance to her, but she rejected it, mocking him by stating that she was already allied with Shirō. Meanwhile, driven by revenge, Shinji is with Rider in a dark classroom, ordering her to activate a restricted field. The activation creates a gigantic eye over the school, staining the sky red, and skeletal golems emerge from the ground. The impact of the field affects Shirō, who feels pain in his chest. Rin advises him to maintain the generation of mana to stay conscious. While exploring the school, Shirō finds unconscious students and a golem attacks Rin. Using his command seal, he summons Saber, who quickly dispatches the golems. Saber and Shirō explain the situation, but the field prevents Rin from contacting Archer. Saber detects the presence of a servant on the ground and stays to confront it, while Rin and Shirō go to the first floor to deactivate the field. Meanwhile, an invisible enemy attacks Shinji, but Rider defends him and loses her life in the process. Simultaneously, an illusion of Rider attacks Saber, eventually revealed to be a creation of Castor. Rin and Shirō find Shinji traumatized and Rider's mutilated body. Rider's death triggers the disappearance of the field. Rin interrogates Shinji about the assailant, but he flees without providing any answers. Comparing notes, Rin, Saber, and Shirō conclude that Castor is likely the culprit. Rin praises Shirō's performance in the situation. The paramedics provide care to the affected students at the school, while Saber, Shirō, and Rin discreetly try to avoid attention. During their escape, Archer appears before them, being scolded by Rin for arriving late. She informs Archer about Rider's death, presumably at the hands of Castor. Archer questions Rider's worthiness as a hero, while Saber defends her sacrifice. The discussion leads to an imminent confrontation between Saber and Archer, but the latter reveals that he is under the control of the command seal and cannot fight against Saber. The conversation shifts towards the strategy to identify and defeat the unknown master and Castor. Planning to attack the master before they return to the Ryudo temple, Rin suggests calling it a day. Shirō wishes to continue working together, but Rin warns him about Archer's strange behavior and the need for time to align their objectives. As they part ways, Rin threatens to use another command seal on Archer. In the evening, Saber and Shirō have dinner together, and Saber expresses her desire to sleep in the same room to protect him. Despite the initial awkwardness, Shirō agrees. Meanwhile, Shinji seeks refuge in the church and talks to Kure. Shinji, following Rider's death, considers withdrawing from the Holy Grail War. Kure offers him another servant to continue participating. The next morning, Saber, Shirō, and Fujimura-sensei have breakfast together. They discuss the attack, and it is revealed that the affected students only suffer from anemia. Fujimura-sensei mentions that the cause was chemicals in an empty classroom. Sakura is fine, and it is suggested that Shirō visit her. At school, Rin suggests that Issei might be Castor's master. Despite Shirō's doubts, they both decide to investigate. During lunch, Shirō questions Issei in the student council room, looking for evidence of a command seal, but finds nothing. Shirō inquires about the Ryudo temple, but Issei seems to know nothing relevant. After school, Shirō and Rin observe an unknown man in front of the Metro residence. They decide to hide while he walks away. Rin mentions having seen him talking to Sakura earlier and mocks Shirō for focusing on protecting his kuhai instead of searching for the unknown master. Shirō denies controlling Sakura and informs Rin that Issei is not the master. Shirō asks Rin about her presence there, and she reveals her concern for Sakura. Rin poses a hypothetical question about adoption, sparking a discussion about a girl's feelings in that situation. While Shirō believes it would depend on the family, Rin questions why he asked the question if the answer was obvious. They agree to continue searching for Castor the next day. In the evening, Shirō trains with Saber and reflects on his defeat. Fujini comments that it has been a long time since she practiced kendo. Saber is surprised to learn that Shirō stopped training when his father, Kiritsugu, passed away. Fujini shares details about Shirō's childhood, describing him as stubborn but dedicated to justice. Saber asks why he acted that way, and Shirō struggles to find a clear answer, confronting his own ideals due to the current war. Archer finds himself alone in a field of swords, his body pierced by various weapons. In a dream of Rin Tosaka, Archer appears as a heroic spirit, displaying images of hanging bodies in his angry, bloody face. Rin wakes up in her mansion, reflecting on the dream and concluding that it revealed Archer's transformation into a heroic spirit. In a conversation with Archer, Rin defends her choice to support Shirō Emiya despite Archer's warnings about his weakness. Rin labels Caster as a monster, but Archer emphasizes her skill as a mage. Rin confronts Archer about his influence on her emotions, mentioning the strange dream, and Archer is bewildered, but Rin doesn't provide explanations. Despite the discussion, Rin sticks to her decision, and Archer promises to continue watching over her from the shadows until she's in full form. In school, Shirō is drawn to Archer's swords and recalls an action scene involving them. Later, he encounters Issei Ryudo, who reveals that Shirō Kuzuki is like a brother to him, and that he lives in the Ryudo temple with the woman Kuzuki plans to marry. Rin suspects that Kuzuki is the unknown master and Caster is the woman in question. She plans to confront Kuzuki that night, with Shirō providing opposite collaboration. After school, Shirō informs Saber about Rin's plan, and together they join her at an abandoned gas station. Rin sets up a magical trap for Kuzuki. As Kuzuki approaches, Rin unleashes a magical burst, revealing Caster. Shirō steps forward, confronting Kuzuki about his control over Caster and highlighting his harmful actions. Although the original plan is disrupted, Shirō demonstrates his determination by facing the situation alone. Kuzuki admits his ignorance about the damages caused by Caster, showing disinterest in the Holy Grail War and the lives of others. Despite Rin launching a magical attack, Caster blocks it. Saber attempts to confront Kuzuki, but he defends himself with magic and counterattacks, showcasing his superior skill. While Caster advances to finish off Saber, Kuzuki attacks Rin and Shirō. With astonishing speed, Kuzuki quickly incapacitates Rin. Shirō attacks with a reinforced pike, but Kuzuki breaks it and strikes Shirō in the stomach. Realizing that Rin is in danger, Shirō projects two swords to defend himself, surprising Kuzuki and distracting Caster enough for Saber to strike Kuzuki. However, Caster saves Kuzuki and both of them retreat. Rin remarks that Kuzuki will seek refuge in the Ryudo temple. She asks Shirō how he was able to project the swords, and he reveals his previous experience with projection magic. Shirō is surprised by the effectiveness of the swords and feels a strange, sharp pain, but he assures Saber that he is fine. Elsewhere in a dark chamber, Gilgamesh informs Shinji Matu that he will postpone killing the masters until certain necessary actions have been completed, leaving a mystery surrounding his true intentions. Shirō Emiya and Saber return home after an intense battle. Despite the injuries, Shirō minimizes his pain, but during the night, he experiences discomfort in his arm linked to the magical circuits system he had used before. Upon waking up, the pain has disappeared, but he discovers that he can't properly use the arm that houses his command seal. At school, Shirō Kuzuki is absent due to an illness reported by Teiba Fujimura. Shirō notices more issues with his left arm and forgets to talk to Rin Tosaka, assuming that there are no significant updates. At home, while Shirō is cooking, his arm acts up again, breaking a plate. Rin arrives and scolds Shirō for his lack of caution. Saber, Rin, and Shirō discuss a plan to confront Caster. Despite Shirō's discomfort, Rin stays for lunch. The discussion about the attack plan reveals the need to address Ryudo's protected temple. Shirō tries to get Rin to leave, but she and Saber insist on the importance of planning together. Rin warns about the arrival of Fujini, who comes with her cheerful attitude and is surprised to see Rin, creating quite a scene. After dinner, as Shirō tries to wash the dishes, Rin takes his place. After the bath, Shirō encounters Rin outside, who praises his bounded field, and they talk about their perspectives on magic. Rin points out that Shirō cares more about others than himself, comparing him to someone not mentioned by name. Upset, Rin decides to stay overnight in Shirō's guest room. Following the previous events, Shirō practices his tracing technique in his shed. Saber finds him, and he explains that his father, Kiritsugu Emiya, taught him to practice magic daily but not how to be a proper mage. Instead, Kiritsugu taught him to enjoy life to the fullest. Saber inquires about his left side, and Shirō reveals that it is known due to the projection magic he used the previous night. Archer enters, displaying familiarity with Shirō. Upon examination, Archer notices that the inactive magical circuits in Shirō have opened up and filled with mana, causing numbness. With a touch, Archer corrects the flow and predicts that Shirō will recover and become a stronger mage. Archer shares that he experienced something similar in the past. Upon leaving, Archer challenges Shirō's ideals once again, warning about the lack of meaning if those ideals are not genuine. Archer suggests that Shirō might cause pain to others if his ideals are borrowed. He concludes that Shirō's life is a lie, but Shirō refuses to accept that perspective, clinging to his ideals. Shirō is in the kitchen, about to prepare a meal, when he discovers that his bread has been replaced by 3 100-yen coins. Heading to Rin Tosaka's room where she has just woken up, he feels embarrassed to see her in pajamas and quickly flees the room. During breakfast, Saber asks Shirō about his condition. He mentions that the numbness on his left side has disappeared, but he still feels a bit heavy. Rin surprisingly announces that she and Shirō will have a date, leaving him perplexed. Dressed up, Rin, Saber, and Shirō get ready to go out. Taiga Fujimura teases Shirō about his date and reveals that she also has a date that day. They travel by bus to a neighboring town, where Rin insists that they are on a date. They enjoy desserts at a cafe and go shopping, during which Rin mocks Shiro's appearance, though she assures him that he will become a handsome guy as he grows older. At the batting cages, Rin showcases impressive skills, while Saber struggles. Later, Shirō comments on Saber's competitiveness and Rin's ability, joking about her supposed push-ups before bedtime. They sit on the grass for a picnic, where Rin continues to flirt and tease Shirō, who calls her a demon. In the end, he thanks Rin for staying with him, embarrassing her. Fujimura-sensei visits Kiritsugu Emiya's grave, talking about Shiro's life. Suddenly, Castor appears as it starts raining and reveals her plans beholding the unconscious teacher. Back on the bus, Shirō, Rin, and Saber realize there is no driver. Despite a crash, they remain unharmed. Castor appears, revealing a bounded field and attacking with water familiars and regeneration. She claims to want Shirō as a puppet and threatens to harm the city if he doesn't cooperate, emphasizing her unlimited access to the population's mana. Shirō refuses to work with Castor, demanding the release of Fujini. Castor reveals Shiro's past as a survivor of the last Holy Grail War, provoking him to desire the Grail as a reward. She proposes an alliance, claiming she can summon the Grail without the servants having to fight to the death. Despite the offer, Shirō rejects the witch who sees people as mere food. Willing to save Fujini, Shirō approaches Castor, prepared to cut his own arm. Before Castor can act, Saber intervenes, triggering a fight. Unaware, Shirō uses his command seal to stop Saber, allowing Castor to steal the seals using her noble phantasm, Rule Breaker. Castor releases Fujini but uses a command seal to force Saber to attack Rin. Shirō intervenes, getting injured by Saber's sword. Archer appears, destroys the water familiars, and creates an escape route, allowing Rin, Shirō, and Fujini to flee. In the mansion, Rin tends to Shiro's severe injuries and he loses consciousness. Rin and Archer discuss the events, questioning Archer's identity as a heroic spirit. Archer suggests that the pact with Shirō should end since he is not a true master. Rin argues that the decision should be Shiro's. Emiya wakes up, notices Rin's absence, and discovers the pendant she used to save him. Filled with sadness, he realizes her sacrifice. Castor, at the Ryudo Temple, orders Assassin to guard the gate and then confronts Karai in the church, demanding the Lesser Grail and revealing her control over Saber. Elsewhere, Shirō searches for Rin and finds her on a rooftop. In a cold manner, she informs him that he is no longer a master and warns him that he will die if he doesn't stay out of the war. Shirō Emiya, still wounded, reflects in his room on his past and the fire in his village 10 years ago. His desire to become a hero of justice to prevent tragedies motivates him, yearning for a time when everyone is happy. At dawn, he prepares with his sword and Rin Tosaka's pendant in hand, determinedly heading out. Meanwhile, Saber confronts distress in Castor's church as Castor attempts to control her unsuccessfully. Saochuru, Castor's master, arrives and questions his servant's actions. Castor unveils her plans, capturing Saber for her own gain and killing the church priest. Saochuru urges her to find the Holy Grail and waits patiently. On her part, Rin, who comprehends a dream about Archer and the Guardians, devices summon in different eras to prevent the destruction of humanity. Archer, disillusioned after attempting to save humanity, joins Rin in her awakening. Determined to confront Castor, Rin seeks to face her actions without regrets. Archer praises her as someone special, capable of walking her path without remorse. Back at the church, Rin and Archer investigate the blood from the priest's murder. Rin orders Archer to confront Saochuru, while she faces Castor to free Saber. Shirō watches stealthily as Castor, rising with magical orbs, defies Rin's attacks. Surprisingly, Saochuru approaching Rin is protected by Archer, who then allies with Castor, deeming her more powerful. Shirō intervenes as Saochuru approaches Rin, attempting to strike him with his trace weapon, but Saochuru dodges the attack and breaks the weapon. In the fall, Shirō and Rin end up on the ground, and upon getting up, he holds the Kanshio and Bakia swords that disappear as he falls to his knees. Castor threatens to kill skeletal creatures around her, but Archer intervenes on the condition that she releases Rin and Shirō if she wants him as her servant. Reluctantly, Castor agrees, and before leaving, Rin asserts that she will defeat Castor and take Archer as her servant if she won't forgive him. Rin scolds Shirō for his intervention, concerned about worsening his injuries, but he argues that she feels more pain than he does. Emotionally overwhelmed, Shirō breaks into tears, and Rin, taking his hand, leads him to a grassy overlook under the stars. Rin admits that Archer was right in saying she should have defeated Castor when she had the chance. Feeling guilty about Archer joining Castor, Rin confesses her mistakes and important decisions. Rin suggests that Shirō should ask Castor why she feels cornered, and he shows her the pendant he was holding, revealing that he has an identical one that he keeps hidden. Surprised, Rin asks why he came to save her, and Shirō confesses his feelings for her, falling even more in love as they talk. Without hesitation, Shirō went to rescue her, driven by his emotions. Amid scolding and affection, Rin embraces Shirō and sweetly thanks him for his brave rescue. After healing Shiro's wounds, Rin takes charge of preparing dinner. During the meal, the conversation revolves around the Holy Grail War. Shirō confesses that his real motivation is to protect everyone, regardless of his role as a master, and Rin, despite her doubts, agrees to join him in the battle after he had saved her before. They discuss their future plans and decide to collaborate with other masters, choosing to search for Ilyasviel von Einsburn. Rin shares information provided by her father about the location of the Einsburns in a forest, and they decide to head there. In the church, Saber is bound while Castor is present. They discuss the Holy Grail, and a flashback reveals Castor's connection to a long-haired blonde man. This man, involved in the war to elevate his family's prestige, reveals an alchemy workshop that involves human sacrifices. Castor expresses her disapproval and challenges him when she asks him to cease production. In response, he reacts by striking her. Later, it is revealed that this man is speaking with Kodomin Kurai in the church, expressing his distrust towards Castor and inquiring if he can switch to another servant and sell his rights. In the workshop, Castor dismantles the place and frees the captive children, enraging the man. In a surprising turn, Castor uses her noble phantasm, Rule Breaker, against herself, undoing her pact and weakening herself. The scene escalates as the man is engulfed in flames and Castor fades away. Right at that moment, Lancer appears. Elsewhere, Castor lies in the forest, troubled by her fate as a betrayed witch. Saochuru appears, takes her back, and offers his support, becoming her master. Rin and Shirō, after taking a taxi to the forest, decide to continue on foot. However, they fall into a trap, even though their intention is not to confront Ilyasviel von Einsburn, but to talk to her. Ilyasviel observes the situation through a crystal ball and takes pleasure in the trap that ensnares Rin. Simultaneously, elsewhere, two of Ilyasviel's servants capture Shinji Matu. Before they can kill him, Archer Gilgamesh appears, showcasing his power. Despite the hesitation of Ilyasviel's servants to obey Gilgamesh, he reveals that the boy is his master. Gilgamesh confronts Ilyasviel and her servants, unleashing his formidable noble phantasm and preparing for battle. Rin and Shirō, upon exiting the forest, gaze at the castle in the distance and witness an intense battle between Gilgamesh and Ilyasviel's servant Berserker. Aware that the main entrance is blocked, Rin decides to seek an alternative route. Meanwhile, Archer expresses his surprise at the resilience of Berserker's noble phantasm, identified as Hercules. A flashback reveals Ilyasviel's painful past, betrayed by her mother, turned into the Holy Grail, marking the beginning of her involvement in the Holy Grail War. Ilyasviel experiences the agony of betrayal and the news of the imminent war. The scene shifts to a dimly lit room where Ilyasviel, marked by bloody bandages, is a captive of women affected by the war. Despite her desire to prevent further deaths, Ilyasviel confronts the harsh reality of her sealed fate. The caretakers Sella and Laceret make their appearance, revealing the incomplete connection between Ilyasviel and her servant Hercules. Despite showing mistrust towards him, Ilyasviel demonstrates her determination by not severing the bond, despite the challenges of controlling Berserker. In a snowy forest, Ilyasviel, after a painful ritual, confronts wolves with the unexpected assistance of Berserker, who protects her. Ilyasviel questions her servant's motivation, coming to the conclusion that he protects her not just out of duty but out of his own will. This moment reveals a deeper connection between Ilyasviel and Berserker, and their mutual understanding strengthens after the battle. We return to the intense battle between Berserker and Gilgamesh, where Ilyasviel shouts the strength of her servant. Meanwhile, Rin and Shirō manage to enter the castle and from the second floor observe the confrontation, following Rin's instruction not to interfere. Berserker, severely injured, rises repeatedly to face Gilgamesh, defying expectations. Ilyasviel, with tears in her eyes, begs Berserker not to lose, but ultimately, Gilgamesh uses his chains of heaven to immobilize him. Despite the apparent defeat, Berserker rises once again, surpassing his myth by resurrecting for the 13th time and breaking the chains of heaven. However, Gilgamesh finally stabs him with a lance and proceeds to mutilate Ilyasville, cutting her eyes and stabbing her in the chest. Ilyasville, still alive, repeats that as long as Berserker is with her, she has no worries. They hold hands as Ilyasville recalls how he always protected her, despite his frightening appearance being kind and grand like her father. Ilyasville expresses her wish that he had lifted her in his arms at least once. Gilgamesh extracted what seemed to be Ilyasville's heart, triggering Shirō's fury as he tried to stop him. However, Shinji Matu intervenes and introduces Gilgamesh as his new servant. Rin threatens to kill Shinji if Gilgamesh makes a move, forcing him to sheath his weapons. Shinji offers Rin to join them, but she declines the offer. Shinji orders Gilgamesh to kill them both, but he refuses, as it would harm Ilyasville's heart. The scene shifts with Rin and Shirō becoming emotional as Shirō explains that he only wanted to try to save her. Rin criticizes his attitude of putting others' lives above his own. Shirō reveals that his desire to help others originated when Kiritsugu saved him without asking for anything in return. Rin advises him to live his life for himself and experience happiness, but she agrees to continue working with him. As they exit the forest, they discuss the summoned servants and the powerful presence of Gilgamesh. Shirō suggests that Archer possesses the originals of all the weapons that inspired the Noble Phantasms, making them his Noble Phantasm. However, Rin emphasizes the urgency of confronting Castor. Listening to the conversation, Lancer proposes an alliance to defeat Castor. Although initially worried, Rin and Shirō agree to Lancer's offer to form a united front until Castor's army is defeated. Rin questions why Lancer would join them instead of teaming up with more compatible individuals. Lancer praises Shirō's skill in defeating Berserker but points out that they wouldn't have good chemistry. He chooses Rin for her bravery and beauty, establishing agreement between them. However, Shirō sets the condition that Lancer should not attempt to seduce Rin, surprising both of them. Lancer accepts the condition and jokes about the love virus affecting Rin because of Shirō. In the church, Archer reveals to Kuzuki his displeasure with merely observing and suggests that Castor is keeping an eye on him. Archer confesses his desire to learn more about Kuzuki, who shares his thoughts on the lack of identity and his wish to fulfill Castor's desires. Kuzuki senses that the final battle is approaching. Back with Shirō, Rin, and Lancer, they discuss their duty to confront Archer. Lancer points out the possibility of facing Saber, Assassin, and Castor simultaneously. Rin is confident in being able to surprise Castor to defeat her. As they approach the church, they find Archer waiting for them. Lancer appears unexpectedly, getting ready for the battle. Rin asks Lancer not to kill Archer, but to defeat him so he can continue to be her servant. After expressing gratitude, Rin and Shirō head to the church, leaving Lancer and Archer ready to face off in combat. In the church, Rin shares a revealing moment with Shirō. She shows a pendant with a red crystal indicating that there is only one of them, and Archer brought it on the day Shirō was stabbed. Rin assumed that Archer retrieved it just for her, revealing the connection between them before heading out to face the battle. Archer and Lancer prepare to face each other in front of the church as Rin and Shirō enter. Inside the church, Castor, Soichiro Kuzuki, and Saber are present with Saber bound. Castor questions why Lancer is aiding them and exposes his lack of desire despite having a goal. She shares her past, marked by being treated as less than human, but defends her actions as personal choices. As she speaks, a scene from her youth looking at the sea is shown. Rin and Shirō review their plan before confronting Castor. Rin instructs Shirō to stay on the sidelines and focus on keeping Kuzuki at bay. Their goal is to retrieve Archer and Saber to bring an end to the Holy Grail War. Upon entering the room, Rin ridicules Castor, criticizing her appearance and style. Shirō readies himself for battle with his swords, aware of the disadvantage they are facing. Meanwhile, the fight between Archer and Lancer begins, with both skillfully dodging each other's attacks. In a moment of pause, Lancer questions Archer's choice to ally with Castor. Archer defends his decision based on the likelihood of success. Lancer criticizes him for lacking pride in his sword. The battle intensifies when Lancer uses his Noble Phantasm, the Gabold, a cursed spear that kills with a single strike. Archer faces the spear with his own defense, Ro-Ayaz, creating a barrier in the shape of a flower. Despite the resistance, the barrier is destroyed, but Archer survives. Impressed, Lancer withdraws to aid Castor. Rin continues the battle against Castor while Shirō faces Soichiro. Soichiro goes after Shiro's swords, but Rin uses gems to create protective barriers. However, Castor easily deflects Rin's attacks, who realizes that even with more gems, it wouldn't be sufficient. With few gems remaining, Rin launches a manual attack against Castor, managing to land some hits but is ultimately knocked down by Soichiro. At that moment, Archer appears and uses his Trace-On ability to summon multiple swords over Soichiro. Caster intervenes, stopping 3 swords with her chest and revealing her elf-like ears and long hair. She then collapses onto Soichiro, grateful that he's unharmed, bidding farewell as she states that her wish has been fulfilled. She disappears in a purple flash, leaving Rin and Shirō astonished. Shirō notices that Archer repeated exactly his earlier words. Rin confronts Archer, asking him if her suspicions are true. Soichiro calls him a traitor and attacks, but Archer reveals that he never had any interest in the Holy Grail and that he's finishing what he started. Soichiro, in attempting to attack Archer, breaks both arms and ultimately dies under rocks. Shirō approaches Saber and awakens her. Archer throws swords but misses, infuriating Rin, who questions what he is doing and orders him to stop playing around. Archer ensnares Rin with swords and informs her that their contract is over. He then turns to Shirō with the intention of killing him, revealing that his sole desire now is to end his life as a humble guardian reduced to nothingness. Archer approaches Saber, shielding Shirō while Rin remains ensnared by the swords summoned by Archer. Archer confesses that he no longer has pride, only regrets, and deems it a mistake to follow the path of the hero. He warns Saber that she will cease to be a fighter without her master, and he will make her disappear, refusing to grant Shiro's wish as, according to Archer, he no longer qualifies as a master. Saber promises to protect Shirō, and the intense battle between them commences. Saber fights desperately against Archer, but she is weakened, unable to summon her armor or maintain invisible air on her sword. Finally, Archer defeats her, but before delivering the final blow, Rin offers to become Saber's master, diverting Archer's attention. Saber accepts the offer and a new pact is formed, freeing her from the swords that surrounded her. In the new confrontation between Saber and Archer, the latter suffers the loss of part of his sword due to the strength of his own attack. Without a master to provide mana, Archer finds himself in a precarious situation. Saber inquires about his plans now that the tables have turned. Archer reveals his ability to act independently as an archer, estimating that he can last approximately 2 days without a master. The surprise comes when Archer reveals that his true wish is not the Holy Grail, but to kill Shirō. Saber, bewildered, criticizes his choice. Archer invokes his reality marble, Unlimited Blade Works, creating a landscape filled with swords. He reveals his past as a mage before becoming a heroic spirit and explains that his reality marble is his noble phantasm, recreating weapons instantly. Archer threatens to create Saber's holy sword, warning that a clash between 2 holy swords could harm nearby humans. As he summons more swords, an angered Shirō steps in to protect Saber. Using Trace-On, he breaks down the structures of the swords, defying Archer. The confrontation culminates in Shirō's defeat, who wakes up alongside Saber and Archer holding Rin. Archer manages to render Rin unconscious and walks away. Confused, Saber asks where he is taking her. Archer, depleted of mana, decides to use Rin as an insurance policy for his energy source. He threatens to kill Shirō if Saber tries anything against him. Shirō proposes a meeting in the forest, where an abandoned castle will serve as a place to talk. He assures Archer that any harm to Rin will result in his own death. Archer guarantees only a day of safety and withdraws, leaving Shirō exhausted and Saber worried. Meanwhile, within the sphere of reality, Rin immerses herself in a world she considers her eternal reward for helping others. However, she discovers that this enrages her, feeling betrayed by the cruel fate she has received. Rin understands that Archer is a future Shirō Emiya, and both are trapped in a cycle of self-sacrifice. She recognizes the tragedy of Archer's life, constantly betrayed even by his own beliefs. Rin wakes up bound and confronts Archer about his motives. She points out his constant betrayal and his cleaning up of others' messes, asking if that made him renounce his humanity. Archer ignores her and reveals his intention to sacrifice Shirō before it's too late. Rin finds solace in the existence of someone like Shirō, but Archer dismisses her feelings. Back in reality, Rin is found by Shinji Matu and Gilgamesh in the basement where she is being held captive. Archer informs them that she will remain unharmed until sunrise, at which point Shinji can do as he pleases. Gilgamesh shows disdain towards Archer, calling him a fraud. Meanwhile, Saber and Shirō wake up, and despite the fatigue, Shirō feels renewed energy. Saber, as Rin's servant, feels obligated to rescue her, but Shirō asks her to allow him to face Archer alone, even if it means his own death. Lancer joins them, offering his help upon learning that Rin is in danger. When our heroes enter one of the rooms, they find it in ruins. Archer is waiting for them, revealing the truth about the pendants to Shirō. Shirō asks where Rin is and is surprised by Archer's response. Meanwhile, Lancer promises our protagonist that he will take care of Rin as ordered by his master. As he leaves, Saber steps forward to interrogate Archer. She asks why he is so determined to fight against Shirō, but the answer does not satisfy her. In a room, they have Rin captured and someone slaps her. She is tied up, unable to do anything about it. This pervert starts touching the girl's legs, but soon gets his comeuppance as Lancer punches him, sending the villain flying. Rin is impressed by him. Their conversation abruptly stops because someone approaches Lancer from behind, and it's not a friendly ally. After a conversation, Saber explains to our hero the real reason she wants to obtain the Holy Grail. In a flashback, after pulling a sword from a stone, she makes a mistake that haunts her to the present. On the other hand, Archer also remembers his past when he became a guardian and started killing those who threatened humanity. In his path, he took the lives of thousands, and his worldview does not align with Shiro's. Archer steps forward, and a large sword appears in his hand. It's not for fighting, as he hands it to Shirō to take his own life. Following a brutal blow, Shinji touches his face in pain while listening to the others arguing. After talking to Katomine, Rin learns that he killed her father, and he admits it, saying it was an easy job. Upon learning this horrible truth, she begins to insult him while Katomine looks at her smiling. Archer reflects on the true task of the Guardians and believes that they exist simply to be the butcher in charge of cleaning up the mistakes of humans. Saber thinks otherwise, believing that a Guardian's duty is to save as many lives as possible. Archer wants to stop carrying out his task of killing people, so maybe if he kills someone like Shirō, with a heroic spirit, his life cycle will end. Shirō finally grasps the sword. Meanwhile, Katomine orders Lancer to kill Rin. He refuses this order, saying he only follows special orders. The villain, with no other option, rolls up his sleeves, revealing his tattoos. He orders him to take his own life. Without hesitation and unable to do anything about it, the young thrusts his lance into his chest, then falls defeated to the ground. Shirō drops his sword and lets Archer know that if his destiny is to become someone like him, he prefers not to follow his orders and ideals. Archer approaches and Saber tries to protect Shirō, although he no longer needs her. They both summon their swords to begin an epic battle. Both begin to fight tirelessly. It seems that at times Archer is more powerful than our hero. They both stop and Archer assures Shirō that he will die. The cowardly Shinji demands Katomine to stop as it was not the deal to kill Lancer. The villain, paying no attention, approaches the young woman and begins to inspect her. Before he realizes it, Lancer rises from the floor and pierces him with his weapon. Shinji approaches the dying villain and delivers the final blow. He tries again to convince the young woman to be with him, but she continues to refuse, telling him that if he doesn't leave the place, he'll end up dead. He gets angry and throws her to the ground. Shinji grabs her by the neck, and she warns him for the last time. Behind this villain, Lancer emerges once again. He grabs him by the head and sends him flying to the other side of the room. He calls for help but realizes that no one will come to his rescue. Lancer is about to kill him, but he only punctures his chest with his weapon, and Shinji runs away without looking back. The hero approaches Rin and frees her. The fight continues between the two opponents. Sparks fly in the air every time their swords clash. For a moment, our hero's weapon breaks, but he generates two again in a second, managing to stop his enemy's blow. Both continue to fight tirelessly, and gradually a power surges within Shirō, making him stronger. Archer continues to underestimate our protagonist. After clashing swords, Shirō can see his opponent's past life. Images and important moments that Archer lived emerge. Seeing all this, our protagonist begins to have mixed feelings of rejection and pity. He soon gets distracted, and his enemy hits him. Suddenly, Archer conjures a power that takes both heroes to the stage of their past. Meanwhile, Rin is worried about the state of her savior. Both talk about having somewhat crazy allies in common, but the young woman defends Archer's intentions despite disagreeing with him. Lancer finishes listening to her and knows he's about to die, so he performs an ignition spell to set everything around him on fire. Rin thanks him for having known him. Before the flames reach him, our hero fades away. In the enemy stage, our protagonist barely stands while Archer is in perfect condition, repeating that Shirō is no match for him. In a fit of anger, the young man advances with all his strength, but it is in vain. Archer shatters the young man's sword and then stabs him in the leg. After giving a speech about how useless it is to help others and the ideal Shirō follows, he attacks him with a lethal blow. After going through several hells that his opponent lived in, Shirō finds a memory that Archer had forgotten. Our hero approaches a mountain to wield a fiery sword embedded in the ground. An impressive power surges within him and his wounds heal. Archer throws two knives, but these are stopped before reaching our hero's body. Now with total determination, he is convinced that he will finally defeat Archer. The enemy, before resuming the fight, begins to insult our hero, suggesting that he is ridiculous and will end up becoming a hired killer. As the place gradually catches fire, Rin, now free, tries to find shelter. The combat between them is now more violent, and Archer no longer has it as easy. He kicks him, sending him flying, but still, Shirō does not give up. Saber reflects and understands that Shirō wants to defeat Archer because he wants to move forward with his ideals, and the same is sought by his enemy in wanting to defeat him. In some sense, both are after the same goal. Archer inwardly thinks that perhaps he made a mistake. Nevertheless, this does not stop him from attacking the young hero with multiple swords. Once again, he tries to demoralize Shirō, but this strategy is in vain because he has his own reasons to be happy. His determination is such that he modifies the scenario and easily avoids multiple attacks. At the decisive moment of the fight, they lock eyes before making the attack. The three return to normal reality, and it is Archer who is gravely injured. Rin makes her presence known and approaches running. After a brief conversation, unexpectedly, Archer receives 3 swords that pierce him. This villain invokes multiple weapons directed against them. Archer pushes Shirō and entrusts him to take care of Rin. Upon receiving the attack, the young girl screams and laments his death. While Saber is on guard, this mysterious character explains that the Holy Grail has always been there and begins to explain the lore of the creation of the Grail and its functions. This individual tells Saber that 10 years ago, when she prevented him from obtaining the Holy Grail, this relic was split in 2 by a sacred sword. The city plunged into chaos. Apparently, this chalice is the gateway to hell, and when it opens, millions of curses are unleashed. He continues to argue that humanity must be eradicated, and our heroes become agitated. The enemy generates projectiles directed at our heroes, and it seems there is no escape. Debris falls due to the fire, and the villain changes his mind and steps back. His goal now is to open the gates of hell through the Holy Grail. Shirō and his allies' objective will be to stop him, even if it is a difficult task. Unexpectedly, Shinji survived the fire and is outside the castle. He encounters the mysterious villain and blames him for the mistakes that occurred. He takes out a disgusting artifact and then implants it in Shinji's chest to use him as a sacrifice. As he walks away, Shinji quickly transforms into a deformed creature. The protagonists are in a house. Sakura is healing Shiro's battle wounds. Rin promises to avenge Archer's death, and our hero shares his opinion, even though they both fought almost to the death. Shirō gets up and decides that before advancing in their mission, he suggests to the others to eat something, fill their stomachs, and then think about a plan. Rin informs her allies that the Holy Grail is manifested in various locations in the town. Now it seems to be manifesting in another place, the Ryuga Temple. She begins to plan infiltration of the temple to somehow destroy the Holy Grail, although they will face a great challenge because only Saber can perform that task. Despite this, they must also defeat Gilgamesh, a mission that Saber must accomplish. Our hero finds it difficult to believe that Saber can defeat Gilgamesh, and Rin suggests that she can do it, but she needs a special arsenal to match Gilgamesh's strength. Rin stops her words because she can't say them in front of Shirō. Later, while walking through the house, Shirō overhears Rin and Saber discussing the plan, but only catches the end, so he is not fully informed. Later, he knocks on Rin's door to talk to her. Initially, she seems angry, but she still lets him into her room. He suggests that he might be able to defeat Gilgamesh. Something can stop him in the midst of the fight, and that is running out of enough mana. Rin proposes to transfer her mana to him. Despite the tense situation they are in, Shirō confesses that he has feelings for her. Rin is surprised, but she wouldn't mind hearing more. Although this conversation will happen later, they get down to business to perform the power transplant. She tells him something that surprises him, which is that he must first take off his clothes. The idea makes both of them uncomfortable, but more so for Rin, which is why she was somewhat angry earlier. She begins the ritual and touches Shiro's chest. Light emerges from our hero's chest, and he gradually feels that great energy penetrating his soul. Underneath the sea, he witnesses incredible creatures. The young man can see part of Rin's past. Of all those memories, the one that stands out the most is when she first meets our hero. Suddenly, he wakes up, and next to him is Rin, embarrassed. The magic transplant was a success. Despite everything, Shirō notices that Rin is still somewhat angry because she believes that the young man has seen too many embarrassing memories. In another room of the house, Saber is meditating in silence, ready for the next big battle. Both allies are outside. Shirō asks her what she's doing, and Saber responds that something important is coming. She also thanks her hero because, thanks to him, she was able to find her own path. Both promise to return safely to where they are after the big fight. In a lake, a strange and immense object emerges, and when it opens, a large deformed monster emerges. Gilgamesh observes it from afar. In the chest of this creature is Shinji, writhing in pain. This beast could mark the end of humanity. Rin asks Shirō if he's okay, and he takes another look at the immense power he now possesses. The three heroes go over the plan to attack the enemy. Both Shirō and Rin will head behind the temple. Then when they are secure, they will signal Saber to go to the entrance. This way, they will have the opportunity to attack Shinji. Saber warns them that she can only use her holy sword once since she has little mana. After that attack, she will disappear from this world. Despite her fate, she is determined to face the consequences. They are both at the location observing the horrors unfolding near the lake. Shirō notices that Shinji might be there, so he is determined to get him out, but is soon interrupted by Gilgamesh. His presence impacts the hero's plans because now Saber will have to face another dangerous enemy. Gilgamesh's intentions are now clear: to eliminate the human race. He explains that in the past, thousands of years ago, everyone had a reason to exist, unlike the present. Rin cannot bear the enemy's words and ideals and sets out to save Shinji. The villain mocks her and attacks her, quickly defended by Shirō. While both are about to fight, Saber tries to defend against his opponent. Rin quickly tries to approach the abomination in the lake, and the young man tries to dodge the dozens of projectiles sent by the villain. One of these shots manages to make him fall. Suddenly, something happens in the sky and everyone looks up. The Holy Grail is increasingly charged, and this energy is human malevolence. Like lava, the liquid that falls destroys everything in its path. Once again, Shirō will have to be sure of his ideals to defeat the enemy and now save humanity. Rin approaches Shinji, who is still alive. She manages to get him out of where he is, but her task will not be so easy since she has to throw herself into the lake. Once again, Gilgamesh tries to demoralize our hero, whose swords break every time he defends against the attacks. Archer's words of encouragement pass through his mind, but for a moment, he doubts if he has the strength to defeat this villain. An idea comes to mind that with his power, he can replicate the weapons that his enemy is about to throw at him. This plan is a success, and he activates the power after completing all the projections. Some shots explode in the air. While Shirō tries to replicate this power again, Gilgamesh suggests that one option to destroy the Holy Grail is to kill Shinji, although our hero ignores him. Something unexpected happens, and from the beast where Shinji was before, a giant arm emerges. As it has no host, it urgently seeks a substitute. At that moment, the villain generates an artifact that turns into a weapon, so powerful that Shirō cannot comprehend. When the hand approaches Gilgamesh, his weapon activates and everything explodes around. Despite the explosion, Saber and Assassin continue their confrontation. Their enemy believes he has won the battle, but suddenly she activates the true power of her sword. He tries to perform a secret technique, but Saber and his weapon are faster, leaving him out of the game in an instant. After she runs to continue her mission, Assassin disappears. Meanwhile, Shirō is on the ground, but is far from being defeated. Gilgamesh continues to criticize Shirō for his arrogance in believing he could defeat him. He also mocks his ideals, thinking that humans are nothing more than beasts that find pleasure only in making sacrifices. The young man acknowledges that the villain is right, but after reminiscing memories, he finds determination in knowing that even though he can't save everyone, he pursues a future where no one can be hurt. Even if that ideal he believes in is fake, he will continue to fight with determination. Our hero manages to stand up, and his enemy continues to underestimate him. Swiftly, Saber joins the battle, and Gilgamesh narrowly avoids the attack. Although she advises Shirō to stay out of the fight, he is convinced that he can defeat him. After having a conversation, she goes to help Rin. Seeing the situation, the enemy can't help but laugh. Now our hero decides to use his trump card. This time, he conjures a power that surpasses all the previous ones. His enemy tries to counter before he activates it, but he summons a shield to defend himself while effectively performing a new power that transports them to another reality, a desert filled with swords. Before the villain can do anything, our protagonist dodges all his powers, leaving him in shock. Another who is in shock is Saber, who now stands in front of the abomination in the lake. She finds Rin, who warns her not to approach. She even pushes her away when she tries to get closer. All of a sudden, that abomination slowly comes to life, generating a body, while evil continues to spread rapidly across the territory. Meanwhile, in the other reality, both opponents use all their power, and Shirō tries to avoid the swords heading in his direction. Now it's our hero, who makes Gilgamesh doubt his great power, and he screams in anger, invoking dozens of swords. Rin is trapped inside the abomination of the lake with Shinji. She weakens as she uses all her mana, so she orders Saber to destroy the Holy Grail. Saber is surprised because her sword is engulfed in flames. When she is about to perish, someone arrives to partially destroy this giant enemy and manages to free both Rin and Shinji. With her last strength, she manages to get far enough away and gives the little mana she has left to Saber. Mentioning the word Excalibur, she manages to deliver the final blow that sweeps against the enemy, leaving it in ashes and causing a giant flash in the sky. Achieving her last will, she slowly fades away, bidding farewell to her allies. Shirō continues to fight hard, and this time he manages to confront his powerful enemy, who cannot understand how someone fake and have so much power, even managing to break his weapons. Our hero dodges and destroys the swords heading towards him. Now in the air, Shirō invokes a power called Ro-Ayas. Although Gilgamesh draws his sword in time, it is in vain because his arm is cut off. Without hesitation, the protagonist proceeds to deliver the final blow successfully. Both return to reality and the enemy is severely injured, while our protagonist's mana is depleting. The enemy tries to deliver a final blow, but it's futile. The Holy Grail's Holt tries to absorb him. Gilgamesh tries to take Shirō with him. When it seems all is lost, Archer appears and throws a knife at the villain, and finally he is absorbed. Rin heads near Archer. Despite his wishes for him to return, he no longer has any reason to stay, but at least they have one last conversation together before he fades away. Behind her, a victorious Shirō emerges from her and invites her to return home. Rin nods with a smile and approaches him. The end! Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new anime recaps.